By using a combination of heavy 14mm rebar with lighter mesh placed over the top of it, I'll be creating an adequate steel reinforcement and smoothing it back and forth with the screeder. I then repeat the process all the way along until I reach the other end of the slab, and then our slab will be complete.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
My latest project was constructing this storeroom / darkroom under a pre-existing steel awning as part of the ongoing rehabilitation of this whole front yard. My client wanted to make the most of a dead space under this steel awning, so she wanted a storage shed / darkroom. My client didn't like the cold steel awning structure, so we came up with the idea of cladding it in treated timber to soften it and give it a more attractive look. We constructed this bamboo private screen probably about a year ago, and the idea was to eventually put in some kind of shed on this side, so there's still room to park the car. This was kind of a wasted dead space. My client wanted this shed to have a Japanese feel about it, so I constructed it with an exterior frame and added marine ply panels. My client's an enthusiastic photographer, so the idea was we could convert it into a darkroom as well, so it could serve two purposes. Let's take a look on the inside.
We tried to get the most out of the limited space we had to work with, which is about the size of a small parking space. I had an electrician install lighting and power for the darkroom equipment and built a wraparound bench top with overhead shelving to get the most out of the dual purpose aspect of this space. By using plastic storage tubs placed under the bench, we were able to leave enough functional space for my client to carry out her photography. Here you can see how the single layer of marine ply gives a smooth, flat finish on the inside of the wall, whilst our frame hangs on the outside.
So join me as I show you the process of creating this custom-built shed darkroom under a pre-existing steel awning. All the principal framing uses treated pine, and then we added some cladded timber across the top here just to finish off the idea. It helps connect bamboo privacy screen with our storage shed darkroom. It should work as an effective sealed storage area, but also adds a more attractive architectural style.
The theme and style of our shed was decided about a year ago when we started the renovation of this front yard by adding a bamboo privacy screen and a terracotta themed pathway and patio area. My client had purchased second-hand hexagonal terracotta tiles and wanted to incorporate them in the path somehow. We incorporated terracotta coloured concrete pavers to be able to get the square metre coverage we needed for the pathway and patio. We then constructed the privacy screen, framed in treated pine, and filled out with bamboo that my client had harvested from her previous property. This is when the Japanese style of architecture was established, and she chose to continue that theme throughout the future projects. I used the patterns in the bamboo screen to lay out the structure of our shed, with the idea it would tie the two structures together and help them belong in the same space.
Join me as I take you through the process of constructing this custom-built shed.
Setting up a temporary piece of timber to define the corner of our shed. We'll be tying in our structure to the existing steel overhead awning as a way to create a really solid wall system. I need to get this temporary piece of timber exactly plumb to ensure that our walls come out completely plumb to the existing steel structure. I can now accurately excavate a trench to fit the treated timber that's going to define the bottom of our wall. I want this trench completely level, as these horizontal pieces of timber at the bottom of our shed will be defining the foundation and carrying the weight of the walls. The existing steel posts that hold up the awning have concrete footings, so I have to cut out a piece of my timber so I can fit over the top of this. Using my spirit level and tape measure, I can mark out what needs to be removed. I set up a stable platform to make the cut and redraw the cut lines so they're really clear and I can cut them in the right place. These treated timber sleepers are quite heavy, so I want to avoid having to move them around as little as possible. After checking that the first piece of the timber foundation is sitting level, I add another temporary vertical piece to help me map out the bottom of the foundation and continue to work my way around until I get to the back edge. Of the timber is an important detail I want to carry over from the original bamboo screen frame, as our whole construction system for this shed is to help tie it into the structure we built a year ago and make them look like they were all made at the same time. The construction of our foundation piece at the back of the shed is going to be a little different from all the others, as we're on a slight hill. So I'm going to be ripping our sleeper material in half. The treated pine only comes in 3 metre lengths, so we're going to have to join this beam as well. I'm going to refer to the drawing to find the optimum point to join this beam, so it sits directly under one of our studs that'll be part of the vertical frame. After verifying the mathematics on the drawing match the real world layout, I write the measurements down on a piece of plywood so I can take them over to my saw and cut the pieces. I test fit each piece of timber in place after cutting it to make sure it fits correctly. This helps me avoid wasting timber. After being satisfied that I have a really nice tight fit between the pre-existing steel posts, I remove the beams to join them. Here I'm using a small piece of hardwood to splice them together. This join is really to hold it together whilst we pour the concrete. Later on, when I add the vertical stud right over the top of this splice, it'll be much stronger. Holding my level close up against these pieces as I screw them together will ensure we'll have a really straight joined beam. Backfilling some sand and gravel over an ag pipe I installed along the back and down the side of our foundation. Because of the slight hill we're building on, this ag pipe will help direct the water out and around our foundation instead of letting it seep underneath. With the bottom frame complete, I'm ready to start adding some sand, gravel and concrete debris about 150 mil below our timber form foundation.
Can I go to sleep, buried in my chair? The only thing that's left.
I use a piece of timber to screed the gravel flat It also works as an indicator to let me know that I've got it to the right level. I then soak the whole area down with water. This will help compact the sand and gravel in preparation for the concrete we'll be pouring on top. I've ordered a concrete premix that has the correct ratio of gravel and sand. All I have to do is add the general purpose cement, which is the glue that binds concrete together. But before we add our concrete foundation, I have one final step, which is to frame out the corners and doorway with our treated timber pine. The vertical corner pieces will be attached to the foundation frame we just completed and the steel awning roof above it. I cut the sleeper material a little longer than it's going to end up. This way I can scribe it in place to get a really accurate cut and create a really tight fit between the steel awning and the foundation. After returning it in place and checking that we have a really tight fit, I map out where my screw holes will be. We'll be fixing screws through the timber into the steel awning post. I'm using my tape measure and set square to map out my screw pattern, as all these screw heads will be exposed in the final building. I want them to appear even and symmetrical. The heavy timber screws I'm using aren't necessarily designed to be fixed into metal. But if you drill the pilot hole into the steel at the right size, they bind in quite securely. I've removed the temporary vertical post to install our permanent treated pine post. This doesn't have a steel pole to attach to, so we're going to be constructing it slightly differently. The first step is doing a cutout so it can fit around the steel awning framing. I clearly mark out the piece of timber we're going to remove for it to fit into the steel roofing. I use my circular saw to do most of the cut and finish off the corner with a handsaw. The temporary beam I had in place earlier ensured that the bottom foundation frame will line up perfectly with the overhead existing steel structure we want to tie this beam into. With a little bit of adjustment, we should be able to get this stud completely vertical. I want a tight fit for these corner studs. I use the rubber hammer to tap it slowly into place. This corner doesn't have a steel post to connect in like the previous corner, so I'll be securing the top of our timber into a steel beam that's part of the existing awning. By fixing 2 heavy timber screws through the steel into the timber, I'll have a secure connection. I repeat this process for the next couple of studs.
9 to 5 was my dad's advice. Don't think twice, I want the luxury life. My beauty can lose it, I'll use it. Take what I want, oh yeah. A whole lot of ticking, but not enough time. A whole lot of work, trophy wife like me.
I then frame out the rough opening for the doorway that I set on a 45-degree plane to create more access for the passageway. I use a large drill bit to create a pocket to help these screws countersink on the angle.
Spending your Sunday at the gym, trying to fit. Counting the days until I meet my future husband. I try to be kind to myself. I said, girl, you got this. A whole lot of ticking, not enough time, not enough time. A whole lot of sweat, trophy wife, trophy wife. The clock keeps ticking, still running out of time.
I use the same process to help countersink the studs into the bottom plates. Here you can see how I've used some construction adhesive to help give a secure contact for the rough door frame. I continue to add bevels to the edge of the sleepers as we build all the studs around the entire structure. I wanted to have all the corner pieces in place before we poured the concrete, as once the concrete's set, it's almost impossible to make adjustments. This way we've created a perfectly square box to pour our concrete in, and that'll lock the whole system together.
My dad's advice, don't think twice, I want the luxury life. My beauty can lose it, I'll use it, I'll take what I want. Oh yeah, a whole lot of ticking, but not enough time.
With the core of our timber frame tied securely into the steel awning, I start the preparation for pouring our concrete floor. I'm adding a plastic underlay that sits between the gravel and the bottom of our concrete slab. I'm also running it up the edges of the bottom timber frame to help create a completely watertight concrete slab, which will ensure that it stays dry and helps keep it warm inside. I then move on to adding the steel reinforcement for our concrete slab, starting with the special plastic supports that'll help hold the rebar at the correct depth inside our concrete. By using a combination of heavy 14mm rebar laid out in a grid with lighter mesh placed over the top of it, I'll be creating an adequate steel reinforcement for a slab that's only going to have human foot traffic on it. The two steel elements are secured together with tie wire. This is to ensure they don't move out of alignment as we're pouring the concrete. Here you can see me checking with my level to make sure the reinforcement steel is going to sit appropriately under the top of the slab. After cutting the light mesh to size with my bolt cutters and covering the entire floor area, I finish off the process by adding heavy timber screws into the treated timber bottom plates. This is going to secure the wood to the concrete and create a really stable base for our structure.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you. And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why I'm always feeling homesick.
It's worth being a little strategic about how I set myself up for the mixing and pouring of the concrete as I'm working by myself. Concrete's really heavy when it's wet, so the shorter the path from the mixer to the slab, the easier it'll be. I'm building a temporary landing pad for the concrete so I can dump it out of the mixer and scoop it into the slab area quite easily. Part of pouring a successful and strong concrete slab is to keep the concrete moving and wet through the whole process. So by setting up an efficient system like this, it's going to ensure we have a really solid slab. The final thing I need to do before we pour our concrete is construct a screeder. This is so when we smooth out the concrete, it can sit 30mm below the top of the timber edge. This is going to be an important part of the engineering of how the walls attach to the concrete slab. For a standard concrete slab like this, I mix 1 part Portland cement to 6 parts sand and gravel. My system for getting a consistent concrete mix is to add water up to a certain level in the mixer, then half the sand and gravel for a batch, which is 3 shovel loads. Then I add the Portland cement. I do this in fractured shovel loads to give the concrete a chance to mix the Portland cement thoroughly with the sand and gravel. I then add the other half of the sand and gravel, and that's a full batch of concrete. Sometimes I might add a little more water to get the consistency right. I give it a little time to mix properly, and then it's ready to dump into our slab. I always hose the inside of the mixer directly after emptying it. This helps me prepare for the next batch I'm going to mix. It also stops the cement from sticking to the inside of the mixer. Using my shovel, I push the concrete into the steel mesh, agitate it with my trowel and rake, and then go back to mixing the next batch of concrete. I'll be mixing many batches of concrete to fill this slab, so I try and set a rhythm that's sustainable. I don't want to exhaust and fatigue myself in the process.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you. And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why, I'm always feeling homesick. Oh, all I know, all I know, all I know is this is where my heart is. Oh, gonna stay in this moment, gonna lay here on the grass. I don't need to feel lonely, I am finally home at last.
Pouring a concrete slab like this works in stages. The first stage is to fill the entire slab up to the level of the reinforcement steel. I use my rake to keep pushing the concrete through the system to fill out all the corners and edges. I use bits of plywood and timber to stand on so I don't bend or damage my reinforcement mesh. Part of achieving a really strong concrete slab is to remove all the air out of it. The cement mixer adds a lot of air into the cement when it's mixing, so after it's poured into our form, it's important to continually agitate it with the rake or the trowel to bring all the air to the surface.
And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why, I'm always feeling homesick. Oh, all I know, all I know, all I know is this is where my heart is. Oh.
The next stage in the process is to fill the slab to the height of the finished floor. This is where I'll be using my screeder to set the height of the slab and to smooth it out. It's more practical for me to add the concrete from tubs than to pour it directly out of the wheelbarrow at this stage. I use my trowel to spread it out slightly higher than it needs to be, and then use the screeder to polish it down and smooth it out. The idea is to start at one end of the slab, filling it to the volume that we require, and smoothing it back and forth with the screeder. I then repeat the process all the way along until I reach the other end of the slab, and then our slab will be complete.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you. And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why, I'm always feeling homesick. Oh, all I know, all I know, all I know is this is where my heart is. Oh.
Join me in the next episode as we finish the exterior framing and panel the walls.
breaking. Oh yeah, I'm gonna stay right here. Stay till it feels right here.
joining me this week in my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.